Good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H event space. You are tuned into State of the Art, the future of workflow, AI, and the modern approach to image management. Wonderful AI series has been going on for weeks and months, and I feel like it's part of us now. It's part of just the regular curriculum now. The
It's
wonderful
coming up
team
on a
of
year.
coming up on a year. Wow, yeah, it has been.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are our shepherds. You're leading us into this AI revolution,
Leading you
and
into the future.
they're much
Yeah.
better. Yeah, right. I'm
Listen,
acting like this is like some fleeting movement, and Susan's like, no, no, no. This is get with it,
Future.
pal.
we're not the ones making it rain. We're just the ones carrying the umbrella
Mm.
I love that. I love that. And the buckets,
and
and
the buckets.
we're the ones soaking wet. Who you guys are like, here, come in, here, come stand over here in the
Yeah.
shade. We got you. Cliff and Susan, great to have you guys back on. Workflow, image management. It's like AI's been already doing it for some time now, but I'm guessing you guys are going to take us even further into the future of it.
We sure
We
are.
certainly are. Yeah, I think this is
Awesome.
going to be incredibly valuable and very tangible for just about everyone watching, right? Sometimes we go into predictions about what's going on in the future and, all these great new things coming down the pike, but today we're going to be a little bit more grounded, showing you what you could do right now to make your workflow just incredibly efficient, faster, simpler, easier, more intuitive, all of that thing. Just make it better in every way, basically.
And one
Awesome.
surprise, which maybe some of you already know, and I know you do, Derek, Cliff is the workflow guru. So if you're ever going to listen to a presentation about workflow, this is the guy to listen to. The government has reached out to him, and not for the illegal things he does, but for the amazing work he does with workflow. He basically spends most of his days just talking to clients and helping them with his workflow. So I think I'm excited to sit back and listen to him talk about this and the way
Thank
AI is changing everything. So you were talking to and listening to the workflow master. So I'm going to let him take
you. Oh, that's
the
so
floor.
nice.
Yes. No,
That's so nice. And
Susan,
let me
I was
give you
going to
guys
say the
one
same
more.
thing. It
Yeah.
was
Oh,
like,
I
it started with
appreciate that.
Lightroom, and it's like,
Yes,
I've
it was
sent
the
your
beginning.
links to so many people over the past couple months because they reach out to me for Lightroom and advice. I'm like, sorry, Adobe Bridge. I'm old
Yeah,
school.
there's a
Here,
lot of
here's a
people at
link.
B&H I've worked with over the years. I think the word gets around there. It's kind of funny.
And
That's
Derek,
great.
how have we not made you a Lightroom guy yet? What is happening? You know this guy, right?
I know. I'm
I
in
don't know, dude, we
Paris.
gotta talk, man.
I have to stay out, in the realm of the unknown, because then once I know everything, I feel like, no, that is
Sure.
bad excuse, not working.
Now, in
Ah,
full disclosure, I should also tell everyone that even though Susan and I are on two different windows, we're actually like
I know people are
next to
like,
each
wait, I
other.
see this arm coming
Just
into Cliff's screen. What is
yeah,
it?
I know. It's like what? That's why I look like
This is what's going to happen. All right, my
Like,
turn.
that's exactly why we're doing that.
I
So she
love
can
it.
shut me up.
I love it. Well, I'll let you guys get to it. I'll see you in a bit for the Q&A.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you so much. So that's actually a great segue. There's a lot to cover here. I appreciate the kind word, guys. I really do appreciate it. I all day long, just hours and hours and hours a day with people all over the world, showing them how I can help them improve things, and it's actually really valuable. And I see this and I know this firsthand. So to give you a little bit of a background, I just started doing this because out of pure frustration, right? As many of us are. It's like I want to spend. It's actually beautiful out right now. It's November. We're here in Rhode Island. It's gorgeous outside. I was like, we should be outside. We should be enjoying, being out and just enjoying life more than being stuck behind a computer. So I've went just so far out of my way over the years, born out of just pure frustration and seeing how everyone else does it, but it works for them and not for me, to develop a system that started working for me. And then I started showing others. Actually, a lot of P&H too. And this was years ago, the last like full segment we did. So we'll have to update that. But I started showing this to a lot of other people. And then I started learning how they do things, right? And what their world looks like. And one's a landscape photographer, one's a portrait photographer, one's just taking pictures of, family members at events, and one's on the road full time. Another one's, has this situation with multiple houses. And I just started, fixing this. And then I realized there's something underneath all these layers of these workflows that is like a core foundation. When you use Lightroom the way it's designed to be used, because it's actually very intentional, the way it's designed to be used. And I figured out all of that. So we're swimming downstream rather than upstream. And I found a way to make this workflow work for everyone. And that's what makes us a little bit unique, right? So it's not just about me sharing what works for me, because I have unique circumstances about, the travel we do and the type of work that we do. This is something that works for everyone. And I want to say that right off the bat, because I truly believe that your time is the most precious thing that any of us have. And my goal today is to give that back to you and show you what I've learned over the years through teaching this, through working through this with a lot of people. And I found a way that works for everyone, and not just me, but everyone. And it works all the time. And this is something that grows into it. So the first half of this presentation will be me talking very fast, like the Micro Machines guy, if you remember that back in the day, because there's so much to cover. I usually do a boot camp. This takes about, we're coming up on the next boot camp actually quite soon. And that's a 2-day intensive, the first 8 hours, the first day, is just me covering workflow and everything around organizing and digital asset management and all that. I'm going to cram that into what I can try and do in like 20, 30 minutes to not show you everything what you can do, but with the perspective of giving you an understanding of what's possible, right? To open up your eyes, because you don't know what you don't know. And that's a big part. That's how I start my boot camp, is you don't know what you don't know. My job is to show you all those things that you don't know, so we can automate things, make it as simple and intuitive and fast and efficient as possible, so we can get back to doing what we love to do. So it's in that vein that I'm showing you this quite quickly to give you a coverage of it. Just know that you guys have our info by now. You've seen us. You can just Google my name. You can shoot me an email. I have training, I have boot camps, I do consulting, all that stuff. You don't have to, just don't worry about if I'm moving very fast. Reach out to me. I'm happy to provide any, resources I can provide to you. And there's a lot of training out there that I do as well. So having said that, I want to share my screen here. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. We'll start with our presentation slide.
Looks
You guys should
good.
be able to see that. All right. Now I might just stop my video too. This way my head is in the frame, because it's can be annoying. No one wants to look at my head. I much rather look at the presentation. So improving your workflow, right? So when we talk about workflow, and specifically as we talk about AI, basically a workflow just comes down to inputting throughput, which is like processing your images, and then output, right? It's like a machine you put your images through. And the input is just that importing process, is how we can ingest our images and also organize them a little bit. And the throughput is, well, how do we organize? How do we find them? And how do we edit them? And how do we edit our best photos? How do we identify what those are? And then the output is, what do we do with them? Right? How do we best share them? So we don't have all the time in the world today for me to go over everything, especially in detail, but I want to focus on some things I think are going to be just very tangible, very important, very valuable for a lot of people. And I want to show you how we can, in the vein of AI, because that's the purpose of this podcast, how do we automate everything possible? Literally everything. And I could tell you a very long time finding a way to simplify everything down to just one hard drive, one catalog, one place to find your images. And we have this one click, right? And I found a way that we can literally just click once, and we're going to be able to automate the ingesting of your photos. Find the memory card, automatically open it up. It'll find just the new photos and determine which ones are new, which ones are old. It'll automatically organize and embed metadata for you, which is really important so people can find you later on. It can embed your name, your contact information, and all that, copyright info. Automatically organize and import a folder structure. That's critical to this, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we're no longer going to choose where photos belong, because if we have to choose, we're never going to choose the same way twice. And then if it's inconsistent, we're never going to find what we're looking for. So the automation is also about consistency as well. And then we're going to automate editing our photos as well. And then we're also going to be talking about how we can automate the backup process. And all that happens in one click. It's pretty crazy, I know. Now, the culling and the editing, this is where Susan's going to take over a little bit and show us some of the newer software out there. That's kind of like on the front lines of automating that process and finding that balance between the creative input that we need and the technical input that we kind of don't need. So we don't need to look through 101 pixels and find the sharpest image out of a series of 5 or 10 images that are similar. But if we have 10 photos of a portrait session and there's gesture that matters there, that's something that's a little bit more nuanced, right? So we don't necessarily want to automate all of it, but the tool's getting better and better, because it's not just an algorithm anymore. The AI is really understanding and learning how we look at the world. And it's almost like we have a digital clone of ourselves making these decisions on our behalf as we would make them. It's a very different perspective than what we had just a few years ago. which is just how we can, analyze things and kind of lift the shadows and recover the highlights. So let's get into it. I don't want to get into Aftershoot yet. Susan's going to cover that. I'm going to switch over to my Lightroom here. So here you guys see my catalog right now. If I go up to the top, so behind the scenes, you'll see I have over 1.2 million photos. That might come into play a little bit. But I'll show you what I'm doing here. So I took a few photos right before the presentation because it's just way more fun to do this live. Like I don't like carefully curating these things. I wanted to keep this very real, very kind of real world scenario. So I just took a few pictures right before this presentation. And all I'm doing is putting my memory card in the computer right now. It'll automatically bring this up, right? It's going to find your memory card. And the way I set this up, this is important. I want to walk you through this a little bit because it does make a big difference. It's going to find the memory card on the left. It's going to find just the new photos because I told it to, right? This is something I set up for all of my students, sort of like the cable guy. You don't have to know how everything's set up. You just have to know how to use it, but it'll find just the new photos. If I say all photos, there's over 500 gigs of photos on this memory card right now, right? So that's why you're seeing this folder over here called old, right? I don't need to do that. It's just, it saves me a little bit of time when Lightroom doesn't have to go through a few hundred gigs. And that has to do with a one-click import, and I'll explain that in a little bit. So it's going to find the memory card. It's automatically include subfolders. It's automatically going to eject after import, which so I can just pull that out afterwards. It's going to find the new pictures, going to copy them, not move them. And on the right-hand side, we're going to do standard previews. That's fine. This is critical. Don't import suspected duplicates. This is what makes the whole process work. Otherwise, you're going to keep on importing duplicates, right? So we're going to close that up now that that's done. You don't need a file rename. Don't worry about it. If you are, that's cool, but you don't need to. The automated. So now we can automate our developing. So I can auto adjust. This is a preset that I built. If you guys want to reach out, I'm happy to send that to you. You can choose any preset you want. But what I did is I leveraged the Adobe Sensei, their own AI, to automatically adjust the tone, the color balance if I wanted to, give me sharpening and give me chromatic aberration and automatic lens correction. And all this is automated now. And it just makes life so much easier. And I actually underexposed several of the photos that I took. So you'll see these a little bit dark here just to show what it looks like to have the exposure automatically adjusted, the colors and the tones and all that. All right, so this is on auto. And next I have my metadata. Now this is really important too, right? So if I go to edit presets for a second, what I'm going to do is just scroll down a little bit. And if I show you my one here, there you go. Under IPTC, that's just the international standards. That's the one you want to be using. That's what, all social media and the web can analyze and all that. You want to put your name under copyright, right? You want to put your name under status. You want to put copyrighted, all rights reserved. You can take a screenshot of this. And then when you put your website, you want to put yourself as a creator, and you want to put your email address and your website down here. You can put the country code, the country if you want. I don't recommend putting your address in there, but you can put the country so people understand the international copyright standards, for instance. But you want to put your contact information in here, right? And when you're done, you can save that. And you'll never need to do this again, right? The whole point of this is that we never need to do this more than once. And so lastly, we have is the destination. And the way I set it up, I have a parent folder. And because I'm on the road a lot, I actually have two folder structures. I have a new photographs, and then I have an old photographs or an all photographs, right? So my new photographs are my internal drive. So I chose my parent folder here, and then I organized by year, month, and day in this very specific way, because everything in Lightroom is alphanumeric. So it wouldn't make sense to do alphabetical, for instance, right? Because then April would come before January, right? So we have to do alphanumeric, and I'll roll that up, and we don't need to touch this ever again, right? So everything's fully set up now. All I need to do is hit import. And it's going to import the photos. There's a few other things that's happening behind the scenes that I'll explain too, but it's going to automatically organize the images. It's going to create a folder for the year, month, and day of when those pictures were taken. It's going to auto adjust the pictures just a little, right? It's subtle, but it's going to adjust those pictures so they look back to normal again, even though those are darker. You can see that happening real time. I intentionally made them dark for that reason. And then I also took some bracketed photos. That's why you see so many there. And I did some pano so I can show you guys what that looks like as well. Right. So that's this whole process. It's literally just one click. I know it seems like a lot, but what I can do is now that this is finished, you'll see that little bar on the top left there. Good. So that's finished. I could actually pull my memory card out. I'm going to take another photo just to show you how fast it is. I'll give you behind the scenes, maybe of, can I get a shot of Susan? There we go. Okay. I'll give you behind the scenes. Import the photo. I'm just going to put the memory card back in the camera. I won't have to touch anything at all. It's automatically going to know what I need to do. Right. And you'll see it's like it's going to recognize these pictures, but it's only going to show me that one picture. And I just hit the import button. That's it. So it's one click. It's automatically organizing it. It's automatically going to adjust the photo as I need to. It just gives me a foundation. And then there's some other things in here too. So that's the import structure. That's the ingest. It's all down to one click. Now, what's also happening in the back end is I set up 3 different backups, right? If you remember that slide I had up earlier, we're going to back up our photos 3 times. The first one is actually still in the memory card. That's why I have such a large memory card, right? Because I have a 1 terabyte card because the images are staying on the card. That's your first backup inherently. If you travel for a week or 2, or you're just out shooting for months, you have the last 3, 6 months, even a year or 2. I actually have 2 1 terabyte cards on my camera. So the last year in my camera, basically, right? That's my instant backup. And Lightroom's only going to import the new photos every single time, right? So the next backups I use Backblaze. You can use CrashPlan or Backblaze. I recommend Backblaze. That's an automated software that I set up for my students. That's just automatically going to back up not just your photos, not just your catalog, because both are important, but both. And it's going to back up your entire computer. And it's going to do it automatically in the background in real time, all the time. And you don't ever have to think about it. Set it and forget it, right? And that's your offsite backup. Now you want an onsite backup. Your onsite backup, I typically do a time machine. I set up a drive. I do this for all my students as well. It backs up your entire computer. So you won't have a drive that's larger than what your computer is or what the aggregate total of your hard drives are. And that just backs up every hour, just the new stuff. Once that's set up, everything happens automatically in the background. There's literally nothing you need to do. At the end of the day, go out shooting, put your memory card in, and you hit one button, import. It's going to organize them in a folder. It's going to auto adjust them. Right? If I go to maybe this one, you'll see it's going to auto adjust the pictures. So that was the darker version. That's the brighter. There we go. And now also we want to organize them now. So what we need to do is separate where we put them from how we find them, right? So we have a completely organized folder structure here. And during the boot camp and the training I do, I show people how to take it out of their existing system and put it into this system. So we can remove all these folders, re-import them, and let Lightroom automate the process of organizing 100,000 photos at once, year, month, day, automatically. Right? So if we're going to find them though, no one finds them by date. How we're going to find them is going to be different. We're going to find them here. Let me roll up these so you can see what I'm talking about. How we find our pictures is the same way we think about them in our head. Who we were with, what we were doing, and where were we. How we organize them is on the left. That's their folder structures. Because what's the one thing that every photo ever has in common and never will change, no matter what camera you get from B&H, no matter where you travel in the world, no matter who you're with, no matter even who sends you photos, any scenario, 20 years from now, 100 years from now, there's one thing that every photo has in common, and that's the time. So we organize by time because that will never change. Doesn't matter what camera, doesn't matter what you're shooting 20 years from now. That's the organizing principle behind this, and that's the one thing the computer can automatically recognize, right? It understands the timestamp in the camera. So we can automate the process of organization as long as we have our digital cameras timestamped, right? As long as we have a clock on there, which are all digital cameras too. That's how we automate the organization side of it. Now, how do we find things? We find them by who, what, and where. We have who we were with, which we have facial recognition for now, right? So that makes it actually quite a little bit easier. Then we have what we were doing and where we were, right? And this is what I teach in my boot camp. This is what we do like on a day-to-day basis with my students, is showing how we can find our images again, because that's how we think about it in our head. Oh, I was at the beach with my friend Susan and, we were swimming or something like that. That's what we were doing. That's where we were. And that's who I was with. Every single photo, every time when I ask someone to describe a few photos for me. And I do this throughout my entire boot camp. It all comes down to who we were with, what we were doing, and where were we. Okay, so if we're going to introduce AI into this now, how does this come into the fold, right? Well, for the who, we do have facial recognition, right? So we can hit this little face icon down here, and it's going to automate the process. It's using AI to understand this, to find every photo of every face. And then we can pick a face and we can have it train on that face and show me every picture of that person. So we no longer need to keyword one by one because that's going to take forever. Right? My whole job is if you think that it's taking too long for you to do anything, or if you're doing anything more than once, you're doing it wrong. And I'll show you a faster way to do it every single time and a smarter way to do it every single time. The purpose of Lightroom, the reason why it's so powerful is that because it can be automated, it can be scaled. It's a database, right? So anything you do once, you never have to do again. So we have facial recognition automating the process of the who. There are some other softwares out there. So for instance, we just have this facial recognition and it's pretty good, right? And we can say, all right, well, we know that this is one of our students here. There's Barry, right? And then I can say find his face and it'll find more faces and stuff like that. And it's going to go through the photos and detect faces in the film strip. That's fine. So it's good and it works. It can use a little bit of improvement, but it is very effective. If you're taking group photos at the holidays, for instance, and there's 10 pictures in a photo, you're not going to keyword 10 times everyone's face. Hell no. You'll keyword one person's face and let it find every instance of their face across your entire catalog. That's the power and scale of this, right? That's why I'm teaching this. Now, there are tools, for instance, where I can go into library and plug in extras. And you'll see a few tools here that you may not have or you probably won't have in your Lightroom. These are some plugins that I add. One of them is made by a company called Xire. And if I say search for people now, you're going to see something come up a little bit different, right? It takes a few seconds for it to launch. And it's going to give me more options than I would have with just finding a single face. And finding a single face is probably fine for most people anyway. But having some more options as well, do you want that face smiling? How many faces do you want in the photo? If you're looking for a photo, you don't have to worry about tagging it and keywording it perfectly every single time, right? So it's going to find a similar face, and I can say whether it's smiling or not, whether the eyes are open is not, whether I want the whole catalog or just a film strip. I don't know. We have a little bit more nuanced detail that we can go in there. It could be very helpful, especially if you're shooting a lot of people all the time. Right, so that's the people. That's just under library, plug in extras. And I can say faces and I can say people, right? So you can experiment with which one works better for you, but that's how we can automate the who side of things. Now I'm going to skip over the what for a second because Lightroom's actually not too strong on that yet. And that's what that looks like. Now, if I go to the where, how do we automate the where? So what I typically do is I have my students create just a hierarchy, right? And if you've never been to Africa, you don't need to create an Africa hierarchy. But if you have, it helps to build one. So then we can go and drill down, right? So if we want to type in the Empire State Building, for instance, or I want to type in, I don't know, where are we right now?
Rhode Island.
Yeah. So let's see, do we have oh, we haven't made a Rhode Island yet. Perfect. So what I would do is I'd go over these photos, and typically what I would do is I'd select these pictures and I would go into the United States. This is actually a perfect scenario. And I would create a keyword tag inside and I'd say Rhode Island, right? And if I wanted further, if I want to figure out what town we were in, then I would create a keyword tag for that. And I would just build the keywords out as I needed, depending on where I go. And it works. But if we want to automate things, we want to use AI a little bit and just automate things in general, there's a better way to do it. So you might notice on some of these thumbnails, I have this little map icon here, right? So if I click on this photo here and I click on the map, that map is a pinpoint that's showing you, or that pin is for the map that's showing you exactly where you took these photos, right? So this is where we are broadcasting live right now at B&H.
And is that
The
because
glorious Holiday Inn.
we keep your GPS on, Cliff? Is that why?
Yes, I was going to get to that. So the reason why it's automated, the reason why you can see these, even though it's a it's a DSLR photo and not an iPhone, is because there's an app that I can tether to. And most DSLRs, most mirrorless cameras now have this amazing functionality. And as long as you turn it on once, it will tether to your camera and automatically build in or kind of ingest this GPS data into each photo you take as you're taking it, right? So it automates a process because now if I click on one of these photos, for instance, I go back to this map, you're going to see, well, I have a city and I have a state and I have a country, right? Based upon the GPS coordinates. It just has the GPS coordinates, but what we're able to do is allow geocoding, reverse geocoding. That's what Lightroom calls it. You can turn that on Lightroom, and as long as you have GPS coordinates built in, you're going to have your location data. So if I come up here to metadata, for instance, and I go to location, by default, I might be at default. That makes sense. I typically do EXIF, all EXIF and IPTC. But if I do location, you're going to see that it has a location for each one of these.
So it turns out we're in Massachusetts.
Turns out we're in, yeah, we're not in Rhode Island. We're in Massachusetts. We'll be in Rhode Island's what, like 10 minutes away or something. That's exactly why we do this, guys. Right? Because if I was going to do this, I was about to tag this Rhode Island. Now we're at a Holiday Inn. This is really important too. That's really good. Now, if I wanted to use sublocation, watch what happens here. These are sort of grayed out. I'm going to type in Holiday Inn. Right? And I can have my sublocation in there as well. Right? And that's actually really handy. So if you want to do Empire State Building, you want to do the Eiffel Tower or something like that, that's going to be really handy for you to have. And if you want to lock these in so they can't be changed, there's actually another plugin that I would recommend. And that is under, it's called Any. They make an Any filter and an Any tag. But this option here under Any tag, it's basically, I think they call it like a freemium where you can just decide what you want to pay. So, you know, $5 or $10 is typically fine. And commit locations. And what that will do is burn in these GPS coordinates. You have your city, state, country, and then your sublocation. So now the where is automated, right? That's really, really powerful to be able to have. And just to show you what that looks like, where do I have this? I think I have for auto stacking. I brought in a bunch of drone photos here just to show you what that stacking looks like. And I'll get to that in a minute. If I just go to map, you'll be able to see like where all these images are taken, right? So anywhere you go, you'll be able, oh yeah, I was in Italy, I was in Switzerland, I was in Slovenia, automatically, right? That's AI really kicking in. Now, it's going to be taken to another level as we can build in what's called Vision, Google Vision API. And I'm actually meeting with Adobe over the weekend about some things that I'm not allowed to really speak about yet on an NDA, but there's some things that are coming down the pike very soon. So maybe this video is a little premature, but there's obviously we have reverse image search in Google. Now, if we had this type of technology, I'm not saying that there is, but we have plugins that allow this to be a reality today. You do have to pay for it, so I'm not going to demo it, but just know that's one of these things when I was showing you under library plugin extras, there is this Any Vision. And the type of technology is called, you know, it's Google Vision API. But that will allow you to sort of just look at an image and understand, oh yeah, that's Eiffel Tower, that's San Marco, and automatically keyword for you based upon just knowing what the image is about, right? So it's about to get a lot faster, a lot more intuitive. This is what the cutting edge is right now for just making it as efficient as possible, right? Now, that brings me to the what. So we have our who, we have our where. Now, the what is just what's the photo about? It could be a rainbow, it can be a beach, it could be a mood, it could be anything. It could be a toothbrush, it could be peanut butter. But what's the photo about? Now, typically we'd have to keyword this. And Adobe has technology in their other suite and other applications in their suite, in the mobile, for instance, in the desktop version, not in Lightroom Classic, that will help you understand exactly what the photos are about. But now we have plugins such as Xire. I'll go to plugin extras, and you'll see some options down here, right? And this is how you're going to find your images from here on in, right? We automated the process of organization. Now we're going to automate the process of finding our images. Now, it turns out if you really understand how the software works and you use it, it's called Xire Search. You want to get the newer version. You don't need a keyword as much. And this is exactly why I'm doing this presentation, or one of the main reasons, is that we spend so much time laboriously, tediously keywording our images, and we don't need to anymore. The computer will recognize it's a rainbow. The computer will recognize it's a waterfall, right? So we have all these options here. Now I can search by example photo. What that will do is take that photo whatever photo I'm looking at and say, what are the similar photos around here? That's a really powerful thing for those of you who have many duplicates or let's say scan photos. You want to put them in that year, month, day structure. You can search by keyword, which I already showed you the search by faces. That was the aesthetics I'm going to talk about in a second. That's one of the newest features. This one is really interesting here. Search by text prompt. So for this, what I can do is type in anything. I think I tried pizza before because we were kind of hungry. And then I saw this pizza and I was like, wait a second. Do you remember that French fry pizza? And I could say whole catalog, it's fine. But I can say anything I want to, right? And it's going to find French fry pizza. Now, unless you're really in the business of meticulously keywording your photos, I would never keyword this. I might keyword pizza. You'll see that there's other ones that are not pizza. It's going to bias, but that's fine. It's biasing at the top towards the ones that are the highest probability. And you can kind of narrow that down what you want. To show you in another example, plug in extras and search by text prompt. That's what you want. So the shortcut's really nice. So you can just hit Option Command Z or Alt Control Z if you're on a PC. So I'll just do that. Option Command Z. And since I was talking about, I don't know, waterfall rainbow, right? And these are things that you could never really find before, but now it's finding a picture of a rainbow in front of a waterfall, right? That's pretty wild. So this replaces so much time keywording. There's still things you want to keyword. The events, for instance, is not going to know it's someone's like birthday party or their graduation party or something like that. You want to keyword events, and that's typically what I do actually in the folder side of things. That's why you'll see this on left here. This like a recent project that I've been shooting. It's one of the reasons why we're up here. But I just put that in the folder name here because an event occurs in time, right? A rainbow doesn't necessarily occur in time. A waterfall doesn't occur in time, but events, Halloween 2024, Thanksgiving 2024, those are events that occur in time, right? So that's a folder structure in a nutshell. Now let's go back to this import. How do we find our best ones? And we have the culling part of it, and that's what Susan's going to dive into in a few minutes. But how do we actually find the best photos and then edit them? Now, I automated the editing process to a degree. It's just a foundation. It's not going to automate the nuance of your edit. It's just going to get you to a place where it's well exposed and you can make decisions about which ones you want to work on. But how do we kind of make sense of this now? Because this is a little bit more real world, right? This is something I just shot right before. I haven't looked at these yet, actually. Now, because I can tell that I've bracketed these, right? And let me just turn this off. In fact, if I hit Command A and Shift Command R, that will reset these auto adjustments. So you can kind of see a little bit about what that looks like. I just want to make it so you guys can see what I'm doing here. All right, so I can take these and I can stack them. I can take these and I can stack them. And that's what people do, and it takes forever. So let's automate that, right? I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to stacking, and I'm going to go to auto stack by capture time. And what I'm saying is like, what's the time between each stack of images? So because we're on motor drive, when we're doing bracketed photos, and even when we're doing panos, typically there will be a few seconds. So I can say maybe like 5 or 6 seconds between the stack, and then I'll hit stack. And now it just built a stack for each one of these, right? So now all of a sudden I have a lot more clarity. If you don't see a stack because I only took one photo, for instance. All right, and maybe these, I can hit Command A and then Command U, and I can auto adjust these so they can look a little bit better. I don't necessarily need to, but it's just there so I can show you how to do that. And then now let's process them. So I can say, all right, I want to process these stacks right here. And if I go right click and I go to photo merge, I can say process as an H chart. You'll notice that shortcut, Control H. So that's typically what I do. Control H. If I want to make it faster, I'll hit Shift Control H. It won't even bring up a dialog menu. But since I have multiple ones, this is the key part of this. Since I have multiple stacks already built for me, then it's just going to process them all in the background. You'll see that on the top left there. And I set it up in a way that once I do this once, you won't have to do it again, right? Everything you do once, you don't have to do again. It's automatically going to put that final HDR version image, auto adjust it, and then put that on top and stack the other ones underneath. So I have a nice, clean folder of images at the end of the day that I don't have to go one by one and build these. Now, you'll notice here, I have a pano, right? And if I had multiple panos, I can stitch multiple panos together too. So control, if you remember that shortcut, control H for HDR, but it's control M for merge, right? If I shift control M, it's just going to do that with one stack of images. It's really important. So shift control M, just going to automatically do it. So I'm coming with dialog box, just going to automatically create that pano, stack them on top of each other. So you just have one pano to worry about. Then I can just make these my 3-star images, and then I can move on with my life and get back to some other things like like eating French fry pizza, right? So that's what that looks like as far as automating a lot of that culling to just make sense of things. And then for each one of these stacks, because each one of these represents a final photo now, I'm gonna make all these a 3-star. And this one as well. So this is a stack. I think that's just 2 more. So I control H. That will merge those in the background. And then we have our lovely Michelle here that posed for me at the front desk in Massachusetts, not Rhode Island. And there's the Susan photo, right? So I'm going to make a 3-star for each of these. Now, if I wanted to show you what that looked like unstacked, right, I'll make this one a stack as well. We're still waiting for those HDRs and the panos to take place. All I need to do is turn on a filter. So if I'm going to unstack these, right, Command G is to group them, right? So that's why that's important to know. I use the word stacking because I use them interchangeably. Command A and then Shift Command G will ungroup these. So you'll see all these pictures now, but you don't ever really need to see them because we're going to turn on attributes and filter them away. So from here on in, anytime I click on this folder, I'm not going to see 40 pictures. I'm going to see like the 8 photos that I like, right? And I do that for each folder. And when I go to the month, I can filter the whole month by my 4 stars, which are the ones that I want to share, right? The 3 stars are the ones I want to see. The 4 stars are the ones I want to share. Then I can go up to the whole year and my whole parent folder and just say 5 stars. So I have one click to find my portfolio shots. Those are the ones I want to showcase. Your 3 stars are the ones you want to see again. Now, if you want another shortcut, you could just hit Command L, and that will turn your library filter off. So you don't have to wade through all these pictures anymore. You just see the ones you want to work on, right? So that's, in a nutshell, a lot of this. The auto location we talked about, that's good. The auto stacking, I showed you. We can show what that looks like on a larger scale. So we just go to stacking down here, and we go to auto stacking. And maybe we'll just make this a little bit longer because there's more photos. And this is what, 100 pictures? I'll let it auto stack. And it'll narrow it down to what, 14, 15, something like that. So I put this in there just to show you how we can really scale, right? And each one of these now is a stack for a pano. And I could build all those panos at once, right? So really, really powerful. This scales tremendously. I want to just show you on 20 or 30 pictures. All right, I think that covers most of it. Building Smart Collection is probably one other thing that I'll show you, and that's the last thing before Susan comes into this. So a big part of finding your images, by the way, is you kind of have to remember what you're looking for, right? You have to think about a photo to find it again. And that's actually fundamentally a problem with most workflows. I want my photos to find me, right? And that's a really big part of this is I just want to continuously, I call it the process of promotion, and I just 3-star if I want to see again. If I really like a photo, it's going to be 4 stars. And then I narrow that down, right? And then on and on. And then 5 stars are the ones I want to showcase. If there's photos I want to see again, those are typically my 3s, 4s, and 5s. So how do I do that, right? Let's say there's photos that I want to automatically aggregate. And I don't want to do any of this manually from here on in. This is about saving you guys a lot of time here. So if I'm going to build smart previews, let's create a smart collection, right? And I put a few scenarios in here. So my drone photos, for instance, and maybe I'll do Acadia as well. So if I want to say my drone photos, how would I find all of my drone photos, my favorite drone photos? Let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to create a smart collection, and I'll call it favorite drone photos. And so rating is going to be 3, let's say 4 stars and greater, right? I can say 3, which are the ones that I like, I want to see again, but 4s are really the ones that are good enough to share. Because you're not going to anything you're not going to share. You're not going to share anything you're not going to edit. And now this one, I can say, I'm going to go over to, there's a couple ways to do this, but I'm going to go to other metadata and keywords. And I'm just going to type in something that's going to help me identify just my drone photos, right? So if you're using a DJI, they embed that in the name of the file. So that should be good enough right there. And when I do it, it's going to find my favorite drone photos. These are my 4-star images, right? And if I like this one over that one, it's great. I'll just move that and that disappears. Now I can always double click and say, I want to see a few more. Just the 3 stars and greater. Here's all my 3-star and greater images. Right? So all this sort of comes together now, and then I can look at these on a map and see, all right, these are where I've shot these images, right? Because the GPS is automatically built in. So that's bringing this kind of full circle, how we can automate the ingest in one click, the backup by keeping it on your memory card, using Backblaze or CrashPlan automated. I can help set that up if you guys have questions, and then using something like Time Machine that's automatically backing up on site as well. Right? Even when you quit your catalog, I set up so it's going to back up your catalog every time you quit. And I do that to Google Drive so that sends it off to the cloud as well. So everything happens in the background without you even have to think about it. But going through these images, it does take a little bit of time. And that's the problem, is how do we cull through images and how do we quickly edit them? So for that, I want to turn the mic over to Susan over here. I'm going to stop my share. I know moving fast. Don't worry about it. I have plenty of content out there that will slow things down. I spend 2 days with my students on this, but at least you have a little bit better understanding of how much faster we can scale everything in the workflow so you can get back to doing what you love.
Cliff, that was a lot and amazing. I mean, that was a lot to cover in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you guys are drooling and want more, check out his boot camp, because then you can actually, he takes his time, kind of. It's a little bit slower. All right. So let's jump into culling. So there are some AI technology out there that will help you cull your pictures. So for those of you who are doing like weddings and portraits and big sessions where you actually have a lot of images you're taking, that can take like days, hours, weeks. So it really depends. So I've tried out Aftershoot. Aftershoot is an AI-powered tool designed to streamline the photos, culling, and editing process for photographers. It integrates with Adobe Capture One, Adobe Bridge, Adobe Lightroom, and others. So that's really special. So if you're using Lightroom or if you're using Adobe Bridge or Capture One, it works with all of those. Also, the software is made to significantly reduce post-processing, obviously. So if you need some help with
Okay, good.
You might hear me better. Oop, turn your song.
Yeah.
Great. All right, can you hear me? Good. Continue on with what we're talking about, AI assistant culling. So how it does it is it uses advanced algorithms to quickly identify and group similar images. It detects blinks, blurry photos, it selects the best shots. And that's up for debate if it is the best shots. We're going to do a little sample next so you guys can try this out. But it also does seamless integration, like we're talking with Lightroom and also Capture One, but it allows for an easy import and export of images while preserving the edits and metadata, because no one wants to keep adding duplicates and such. So there's a way that you can actually re-import the edited images or re-import the culled images through your metadata into your existing Lightroom. So it really is a seamless integration. Lastly, they have customizable settings. You can adjust the sliders and match your shooting style preferences and align with your personal standards. So I decided, it's been a long time coming, that I would try out this software. I've heard about it for a long time, and I said, let's download it. The best part is there's a free trial. So it's a free 30-day trial. Oh, 3 other features that it has is it has updating all the time. So it added AI generated masks, cropping tools, and it preserves the edits so you can further adjust them in Lightroom or Capture One. It saves time with your workflow because it's automatically culling it with the AI powered editing. And there's an offline functionality. So Aftershoot can operate without actually any internet connection. Lastly, you can try it out for 30 days. So I feel like 30 days is a good amount of time to try anything out. And I've spent the last 2 days trying it out. So I can't say I mastered it. And there's definitely some things I really love about it, but let's actually cut to what it looks like. So you download the app and you're greeted with a screen like this. And it's very simple. I've watched a couple YouTube videos about it, just kind of talking you through how it works. But pretty easy. First thing you're going to do is create a new album. So you're going to say, okay, what kind of images do I want to do? You can kind of just read through it and it tells you what to do. So JPEG or RAW, or if you want to import a Lightroom catalog. For the act of saving time, I'm just going to actually drop in a catalog that I've actually sorted through already. So this is a bride and groom, they're JPEGs, and the concept of using this would be, hey, I've created a selection, but now I want to share some for a blog or something. So maybe it can narrow down my top selection. I could have done this with the originals, but it takes a little bit longer to process that. And since we're short on time, I've gone through and I've done a quick sort of these pictures, and look how quick that was. It has already imported the pictures, 270 images, and next comes the culling. So it gives you some parameters. We're going to look at the pictures that are here, and then if we go to start culling, we have two options. AI automated culling, which is the AI analyzes and selects the best photo for you, or the AI assisted culling. So let's click on this one real quick. So what type of shoot this is? It's a wedding and engagement. And then what other preferences would we like to change? So what this is saying is, do you want to have a small group of pictures or a large group of pictures? I want to have a small group of pictures. And sometimes there's also a couple other windows that you can set up that didn't pop up this time, but you can actually adjust a couple more features. Like, do you want to it'll probably pop up on the next one we do, but it'll give you a couple other selections. But you're really just saying, do I want to select it to be a very narrow focus, or do I want it to be a broad focus? And you can typically say, do you want to point out if you have closed eyes, or actually you'll look in this little right category here, if you want to see blurry images, and it will go through and it will separate them for you. So look how quick this is moving. This is 30 seconds. It's halfway done. It's moving through my 270 images super quick. And let's see what happens. Oh, 50% done, 22 more seconds remaining. And you can start to see how you're processing. So what's cool about it is you can say, hey, I want my favorites to be 5 stars. I want the just selected ones to be 1 stars. You can actually pick out how you want the selection process to be. So let's go to the top. So green is a maybe, a blue is selected, and we're done in now. Okay, great. So saving the changes. Ha! Look at that. It selected his face. So let's go back to the broad viewing of this. Let me move this window. And key faces. Okay, that's interesting. And duplicates. So there was no duplicates. Let's go back here. So I don't know why it's just showing me its key faces. What happened to everything else? The window toolbar disappeared. Did it disappear? Huh.
Susan, try unsharing and resharing. Maybe sometimes it glitches on here.
Yeah, let me try that.
Right here, stop share.
Share, and let's reshare. All right, I'm just working through it. Let's exit now. Okay. And
Yeah, we restart.
I'm restarting the Aftershoot. Sometimes, it gets stuck on the software, and I'll share it back with you in 1 second. Applications, and we're opening it up. This is what happens with live demos.
You want me to find it?
Yeah.
Just the Aftershoot, right? Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right.
This is
So
the joy and the beauty of live.
I know. All right. So here we go. I'm going to share the
share
screen.
Zoom.
And there we go. Share. Hey, everybody. It's good to be back.
Okay. Now you guys should be able to see this, right?
Right. So let's go to the bride and groom again. We can see the window. So what it said is click on this option. Perfect. So this is what we're looking at over here. I don't know what happened to this quick filter. It took a little break. What we're looking at here is it has selected 88 images. It's selected 96 maybes. It's showing me some blurred ones, which is interesting because yes, it's true. Her face is blurred here. He's blurred here. You know, there's just parts of the images that are blurred. So that's an interesting take on that. It's showing me which ones have their eyes closed, and that is accurate. Their eyes are closed, or they're looking down in some of them. So some of them are not exactly accurate, but she has these great eyelashes, so she looks great when her eyes are down too. So it's just interesting how it's gone ahead and selected, you know, my top ones. And I would agree with these because they've chosen different images of each kind of scene. They're all a little bit unique. There's no duplicates of the same pose. And then the maybe ones I could kind of go through. I would like this one again. So let's say I did like it. I would go through and I could select it. I can even go through and create my own selection. So here it's 0. So then I would say, okay, this little circle are my selections. So I can say this one is one I want to keep. This one I want to keep. And I can go through and retune the editing. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And then if you wanted to edit, then you'd go to this edit window. So the one cool thing about Aftershoot is you're able to create your own AI profile, but you need to have at least 2,500 to 5,000 images to train the AI on your pictures. And I totally recommend doing this. I'm in the process of creating my own AI profile. It takes some time to select the ones that you want to have a kind of look to. So I've gone ahead and I've kind of found my favorite wedding pictures and I'm putting them into a profile. And to do that, you go through your catalog, you create a collection, you export that collection, and then you import it into Adobe Aftershoot. I got my A's confused here. So there's a little bit of legwork to get your AI profile set up. But once you do it, I think it's awesome. They do have some already pre-built. So if we go back into this and I wanted to go over to edit, I could go here and see what these profiles that they created. For JPEG, they have this one because these were already exported. They only have this one called Lemon Zest. I tried it. It kind of made my pictures less warm. I didn't like it, but you can go ahead and fine tune even the AI profiles that already exist. So I'd recommend spending the time selecting your pictures and making your own AI profile here. But really cool, pretty simple to use. It did a great job of culling. I even did, and I'll just show you one more sample. I did a sample earlier of like school portraits I had to take, and it did a great job of selecting the best ones of the students. But the funny thing was, it didn't select all the students. There was like a couple students left out. So I had to go back through and go and find the students that weren't selected. So it is not a perfect science. I think it takes a little bit of work to try and fine tune it. Even here, I decided, let me try some landscape ones. This one was a good pick. They picked the one with the dude's tongue out of all the racers going by. So it picked an interesting one of that one. But if I go through here, I'd be like this. I had my student running through the scene and they picked the one where she was all the way over here. So it's kind of interesting how AI is choosing the images. I'd say don't just trust it. Spend the first initial times you upload your pictures going through it and seeing if it's doing what you want and train it to say, actually, I like this better. And you do that by selecting different pictures and just training it. So my AI is basically brand new. So I'm just working with it and we're just getting to know each other. So I think I'd like to actually continue to use the software for weddings and such. I think that it helped a lot. So moving on, I'd say it was really cool working with Aftershoot. The next one, a program I worked with was called Imagen. And Imagen is also an AI-powered software, but it works with editing. Imagen AI uses artificial intelligence to learn and replicate a photographer's unique editing style. It can automatically apply edits to larger batches. So it's great for big weddings and also school portraits. You can create your own custom profile and you need to upload at least 3,000 to get the images, to get the AI to understand your style. They can also use talented AI profiles. And this is what I think really is amazing about Imagen or Imagen, is that you're able to use, and I'm going to jump into this, really well-known photographers in the industry's profiles. So it's actually a cool way to get inspiration and to start off if you don't have 300 edited images that you're ready to share. Other cool things about Imagen is their culling capabilities. It detects blurry images, duplicates, eyes closed, groups that are similar, and it also offers, which are also free in their beta version. There's an opportunity to do continuous learning because it's constantly improving its editing capability as photographers submit more and more images. So it's constantly getting better every time you import more images. The compatibility works with both JPEGs and RAWs. There's subject masking. So like in Lightroom, how we can create masks, you can also do that in Imagen. And there's also a free trial for 1,500 credits. So I feel like if you are on the fence of whether you should try some of these softwares and you have a ton of editing to do, you should just give this a go, because why not? So let me show you guys a little bit about Imagen or Imagen. I don't know why I keep thinking of Imaging USA, which is the conference I'm speaking at, and it's Imagen. So this is what this looks like. Again, you download it pretty easy. And I can't really go through the whole rigmarole of this one. I just want to show you what I think is cool is these profiles. So first you would say, I go home, I'm going to add a profile. And but hey, I don't have enough pictures to do profile. Let's go to the profile showcase. And I think this is what's really cool. So you have all these options. So I really like Michael Anthony's work. I think he's super talented. I'm going to compare his style. And I'm also really like this girl, Sarah Iman's. I'm going to compare her style. And then we're going to go all the way down here and we'll pick Charmi Patel. Also really, really talented wedding photographers. So what we're looking at here is if you were to apply their styles, you would get these 3 different looks. We could even pick someone else and swap them out so they look a little bit different. So this guy, Michael or Mikel, his pictures has a little bit more of a muted tone. So you can go through and pick the style that you like and then apply it to your pictures. So this is what AI will do individually for each picture. And now you're using these already well-known photographers and some of the styles they've created on your images. So it's pretty cool. We'll look at one more version of these. So this is basically the original, and then these are the 3 different versions. You could even pick a black and white version, or he has a really interesting style. So I kind of spent a little bit of time going through these pictures and just picking out the style that I liked, and I applied it to a batch of pictures, and I thought it actually looked really cool. We don't have enough time to go through all of those, but kind of a similar thing. I would say Imagen is well known for their editing. They also can do culling too, which is a newer feature. So if I could kind of put in perspective, Aftershoot has been doing culling for a long time. They're kind of mastered it and we're leading the way. Imagen has been doing editing. They're kind of like leading the way on this batch editing using AI to edit. But now they're both doing both those things. So it kind of gets confusing. Which one should you pick? So let's talk about the differences. Let me go to full screen over here. So when we talk about the differences between Aftershoot and Imagen, local processing. Basically, Aftershoot will perform all culling and editing tasks locally on your device. Imagen requires cloud access for processing, so you may need the internet to access your images. So if you're one who travels a lot and you don't want to be relying on the internet, Aftershoot may be the way to go. Aftershoot is known for its processing and is described to be faster and less manual compared to Imagen. It provides a broader range of images to choose from during your culling. Also lower training requirements. So Aftershoot requires 2,500, Imagen requires 3,000. And also dual culling option. Aftershoot offers both an AI automated culling and an AI assisted culling. But that doesn't mean that, Imagen offers a lot of presets so that you don't even need to create your own AI profile to start. So I'd say that would be a big pro in their favor. That was a mouthful.
That's a lot. Yeah. I mean, that's incredible that we have these options now.
So I would love to actually go through and really deep dive into the series of both those. If you want, actually, I did see that B&H has had the founder or the people recently come talk about both these softwares, and they can really explain it. I have just been experimenting with it, and as a person who's just trying to increase my workflow, thanks to Cliff, and trying to use these AI tools, I'd say both of them are really interesting to use, but they do require a little bit of practice and a little bit of training. So don't expect to get perfect things right off the bat. It may take a little time to train your AI to make it work exactly how you want.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to stop it. I mean, we both tested these out, and I think we're coming at it from a different perspective, right? I see a lot of my students come to it in terms of just dealing with the overwhelm. And that's exactly what it is, right? I mean, probably everyone would be agreeing with me right now. It's overwhelming the amount of photos that we're dealing with now. It's crazy. And we just overshoot and overshoot and overshoot. But now there's a solution out there. So what I showed you was a foundational core of like a workflow. I think that's really important. And if you follow these things, it's going to automate as much as we possibly can, but there's room for improvement, and that's around the culling and then the AI assisted editing. And both of those they have to be done right, or we're not going to trust it. We spoke to both teams. I sat down with both teams personally. They wanted to work with us and talk about different things. And I love the intention behind it. And it's sort of, I totally recommend everyone to try that for
Cool.
themselves and see. Like I had one of my students that took 10,000 photos in 3 hours. So she's like, there's no way I'm going to go through this. Right. Michelle, if you're listening to this. And I was like, no, it's not really 10,000. She goes, let me check. 10,895. We ran it through Imagen, and she was so relieved. Culled it down to under 2,000. It was more manageable. And that's what this is about. It's just getting to a place where we can trust it, and at least getting to a foundational start where we can then take over from there. And I think that's a really important place to be. And that's where we are right now, the software. It's just going to get better and better and better. For those of you guys don't know, the rate of improvement in AI, it's not like, what is it? Typically, it doubles every 18 months for most technology. It's just 10 times the improvement every 6 months on an average basis. So this is moving very rapidly. And if you don't know about this now, you should try it out for yourself, because it's definitely going to be something you're going to want to know about in the coming months or years.
What is the rate right now of for you guys personally? Like, if you use ChatGPT and it's great for giving you a starter if you're stuck on something, it's like, okay, I can spit something out and then I can take it from here and I can, okay, this gave me, it's like when you're writing a paper in high school and you just need the introduction. Once you get the introduction down, you're good. What is the rate of human to AI that you guys are using with the calling and the organization? Is it, is the AI doing 75% of the work and then you're just doing the finishing touches or the polishing, or what's the ratio on that?
It's it's tough to say because it's integrated into everything now. I mean, there's AI built into our cameras, to help improve the autofocus, which we covered in a previous episode. So where I kind of draw the line personally is the creativity of it all, right? So everything that does not require our creativity, I'm at the point where it almost angers me that there's people out there that are wasting their time manually creating masks for hours, looking at 10 or 20 photos that are identical to find the sharpest image where their eye might be 1 pixel sharper, looking at 3 or 5 or 7 pictures to see which one's the best exposure and where the sky is blown out. Like, and I'm sure everyone is recognizing and agreeing with this right now, because I see this every day with my students. And when I give them this opportunity and I just show them, like, this is the better approach, this is a better perspective, there's a very real world tangible result of just letting the computer do the things that we don't need to be doing. We don't need to be analyzing 5 pictures for the best exposure and building the HDR and stitching together a bracketed HDR panel. I just want to see the result. Like, we shouldn't be analyzing which one's the sharpest photo of the three, which one's the least noise, or those kind of things should be automated completely. And then there's ones where the AI needs to step in and pretend like they're us sitting in the seat. Like, oh yeah, I would have chosen that photo over that one. I would have chose that one over Derek versus this one, because maybe his eyes aren't open, but he's making a funny face, and that's more of his character than that one. Is AI going to pick up on those nuances? And that's, I
Mm.
think, where that litmus test is going to be, is, are we going to trust it? And I sat down, we both sat down with Imagen, and we spoke to about it. I was like, listen, it's not about whether or not we trust the AI to make these technical decisions. I need to trust it as if it's myself. I need to
Mm.
trust it that it's going to make the decisions that I would make, not the decisions an algorithm would make. These make the decisions that I would make. And when it gets to that, like it's on that brink now, and we're working with them and giving them input on this, when it gets to that point, I think it'll be really meaningfully helpful for people to make the decision that you would make at scale. Right. And
That's what I
that's
was.
where we're at now. Like everything I
Yeah,
showed was the
that's what I was gonna
foundation, but
ask you.
now,
Like, is that I was
yeah,
gonna ask you,
for me at the
is that
moment,
an end goal after talking to these brands? Is it like, because I could,
Yeah.
arguably
I would
see it
love it.
as, yeah, like if I
I would
were
love to have the
to,
opportunity to do this, right? But we have all these pictures. Like Cliff and I
mhm,
travel around the world. I have so many pictures of lions, leopards, like elephants that, I don't have, no one is waiting to see these pictures. So they're like always last on the queue, unlike the high school portraits or the wedding client. It's like the elephant isn't asking for the picture. But if I had a way to say, hey, software, can you just pick out the best elephant pictures and give it the little tweak that makes it look like perfect, then I could be posting these to my website. I could be trying to sell them online. And I feel like that's going to be the future is if we are able to automate a portion of things that we always put last.
it's got to be balanced. So to me, there's there's the finding, the culling, and then the editing, right? The finding now, that's what I spend a little bit of time showing everyone. We only have so much time here to get into it. That's why I do this, on a longer format, and we'll probably be doing something a little bit sooner than later, specifically on this. But from the finding aspect, like the elephant, yeah, there's like a photo I'm thinking in my head right now, like two elephants, a mother and a baby at sunset
Hmm.
when we were in the Chobe River. Like I can see that in my mind and remember the who, the what, and where. When we were there together, where we were and what it was in it, I can type that into Xire right now and I can find that photo in 2 seconds. Right. The finding is already there. And if you understand that, like hopefully I demoed that enough so that people trust that. If you understand that, then you also understand you don't need to keyword as much as we used to. You don't need a keyword every type of bird. You don't need a keyword rainbow, waterfall, elephant, something. You don't need to do that anymore because you can find it. So that's the finding part. The culling part, that's where we need to see a little bit more nuance. Right now, it's great for events. It's great for wedding photographers. Where they need to do a little bit more improvement, I think, is towards all photography, right? So I need to understand if it's bracketing, group those images the way I showed you how to do it in Lightroom. I want to see those grouped upon import,
mm.
right? And focus stacking. I want to recognize that there's layers of focus. Now, not any single photo has all the focus, and blend it together and give me the final result and do this so that I don't have to manually choose that and understand that I'm bracketing photos, but give me like the best exposed image. And if I'm shooting a series of photos, give me the sharpest one on the pixel level and give me a little star. So I just know, but I can override it. There's a little bit more nuance. I have a whole, I don't know what you would call it, but like a memo of exactly every detail that needs to happen, that I'm waiting to speak to these companies about that I've been detailing because I deal with this every day with students and I see like the frustration and I see what they're working through and I see how we can solve it. And I think it will get there. And we're really on that path. And then the editing is, I'm on the fence about it. It should definitely never override over edits. But if we can get to a point where like I have when I see a photo and I even see my students' photos, I know exactly what's going to look like. Like I see through the editing process, I see the vision and I know what I want it to look like. I don't see it for what it is. I see it for what it could be. And that just happens after years of doing this. So you develop a style that happens organically when you do this long enough. You need to do it long enough to develop a style. But once you have that style, there's no reason for me to do the same sliders over and over and over again. I want to get to my result. I want to get to my vision. Anything that shortens that distance, that gap between what I'm working with, the tools, and my vision of getting there, I think is better. But you still have to have that vision. And if it's butting up against that point where it's giving you a vision instead of you developing one, then we need to back off a little bit. You need to have your own vision, and that comes with experimenting and failure and trying and building and growing. But once you're there and you know what you want to do, if there's software that gets us there faster, every time I'm going to want to use that software. If it can do what I would do, not what a computer would do, what I would do. That's where I want me to get to. That's where I want all my students to get to. Everyone listening.
What would
Mhm.
Cliff do?
What
What
would
would Cliff
Cliff
do?
do?
That's actually a thing. That's what my students say. What would Cliff do?
For
They're
there,
like,
it's
I have to do this.
fascinating.
I
Like
have
you
to
said,
do that.
it's all relevant, and I think that's the most exciting part is it's relevant. We're not canceling out the human element. There's always going to be that human element. You're always going to want to, at least if it does 99.9%, you still have that very powerful 0.1% of putting human eyes on it, making sure that it's you, making sure that it's what you want. And that's, you can't argue that. I think it's exciting times. If it can
Yeah.
make our
And
work easier, allow us to do more, then why not?
I totally agree. And I think that's so important. We're not with this perspective, we're not doing this for the intention of removing the creativity behind this. We're doing it to get rid of all that stuff that takes up our time so we can focus solely on the things that we do best, which is the creativity, right? That's the
Totally.
highest level of intelligence. Forget like knowing the facts that ChatGPT can give you. The highest form of intelligence is human creativity. And the more time we can focus that limited resource on doing that, that's why we're doing this. Not because it comes from laziness or trying to do this or trying to remove these things that it's so it frees up time that we can focus on the things that do distinguish us from AI and from technology, which is the most beautiful things. And that's what the world needs to see is photos of you, photos of your creativity, of your vision, not just technically perfect photos. So it's an exciting time. It really is.
Amen. Amen. Well, we did drop a link for those of you who haven't gotten caught up with this series. We did drop a link to all the previous episodes. So catch up on that if you already haven't. Cliff, Susan, always great having you guys on. A huge thank you once again.
You're
You
welcome.
guys are like our AI. You guys go out there and you do all the work and all the research on AI, and you give us what we need to know so that we don't have to get stuck in the weeds. So
Of
love it.
course, that's what we're here
It's our
for.
pleasure. We're all learning and growing together.
Definitely, definitely. Huge thank you to Cliff and Susan once again, and to all of our viewers out there for coming along for the educational ride with us. As always, but another edition of the B&H Event Space now in the books. Catch y'all next time.